This content is produced by DarkNetBreaker, a cybersecurity and dark web education brand. All videos, posts, and content are strictly for educational and awareness purposes only. We do not promote, support, or encourage any illegal activity. Our mission is to expose digital threats, protect online users, and educate the public about cybersecurity risks in the modern world. Stay ethical. Stay protected.
At the intersection of biological parahuman behavior and decentralized digital crime, a specific pattern of expansion emerges. A localized breach begins as a cluster of nodes, before hardening into a rigid, self-sustaining architecture that consumes its immediate environment. Accessing intercepted communications from directories like r/the Birdcage allows a PRT data archivist to trace the connections within these systems, identifying how threat actors coordinate across Tor-encrypted directories. The PRT Master Classification Protocol provides the operational baseline for these maps. It translates the specific capabilities of a parahuman asset into military-grade tactical requirements for field response. These threat profiles are dictated by the shards, multi-dimensional algorithms optimized for the continuous generation of conflict data. Shard influence actively prevents peaceful utility. Instead, the entities force their hosts into violent encounters, ensuring the resulting power remains a permanent expression of the original psychological trauma. Parahuman assets and dark web forums operate as adaptive, conflict-driven ecosystems. They thrive on the data generated by standard criminal engagement. PRT threat assessment handlers utilize the four-part intelligence schema to deconstruct these systemic threats. Analyzing the threat matrix allows handlers to classify the lethal vector, identifying the asset as a mover, shaker, or brute, and map it against specific infantry casualty projections. Identifying the shard mechanism reveals how the power subverts standard dimensional physics to achieve its anomalous effects. Mapping the trigger event provides the psychological context required to find the asset's Manton limits. These represent the specific physical boundaries that the power cannot cross. The containment protocol follows, built entirely on the operational flaws and physical limitations exposed in the previous steps. Urgent. Any handler who ignores a single quadrant of the schema risks a catastrophic failure of containment and immediate secondary escalation. The washing machine trigger event occurred within a dark, violent spin cycle. The factors involved rapid drowning and extreme physical isolation inside a metallic cylinder. The resulting high-threat brute and mover package grants the host immense durability and aquatic mobility, born from the physiological stress of the event. The shard provided an immediate biological solution to the drowning, yet the power's design requires the host to perpetually recreate the conditions of that original trauma to maintain their physical enhancements. This kinetic displacement loop requires continuous, violent hydromotion to votion. The shard utilizes the fluid dynamics as a localized energy anchor. This kinetic loop abruptly fails when bridgeable fluids are absent. The Manton limit prohibits the power from crossing empty air or dry environments. Suppression requires deployment of industrial-grade desiccant weaponry at ranges exceeding 500 meters, isolating the host from the fluid environment necessary for their enhancements. The manifested power provides a physiological solution to the trigger event, while ensuring the original trauma remains a permanent physical requirement for the host's survival. The PRT case profile for the veteran tinker designated Senor Malestar demonstrates the transition from biological mutation to technological subversion. His shard mechanism, the time-delayed cascade, utilizes overlapping timers to trigger exponentially larger secondary and tertiary kinetic attacks from a single initial exploit. This tech base bypasses energy conservation laws through multi-dimensional shard mediation, pulling force from extra-dimensional geometries to fuel the armor's kinetic payloads. This architecture resulted from a shard bargain. The host negotiated for pure conflict optimization, inviting the entity to refine his tech base for maximum destruction. Following this bargain, the shard stripped away all secondary, non-lethal functions of the technology. The hardware exists exclusively to facilitate escalating violence. Containment necessitates engagement prior to the cascade's initiation. Once the first kinetic node triggers, the exponential increase in power makes local suppression impossible. Any attempt by a parahuman to control their own power leads to the shard maximizing systemic violence. We apply this same analytical framework to digital criminal ecosystems, including forums like breach forums and Dread. This network map carries a breaker-stranger cloaked taxonomy. It functions as a decentralized entity that actively hides its infrastructure from external observation. The breaker-stranger state is maintained through Tor-based routing, administrative log masking, and extreme gating mechanisms designed to prevent infiltration. Law enforcement responds with the infrastructural break. This kinetic strike targets the core hosting servers to physically disrupt the network's presence. A physical seizure initiates a systemic trauma response. Instead of collapsing, the network undergoes a forced trigger event. The central entity shatters into hundreds of hyper-resilient replacement nodes, migrating across alternative platforms and encrypted messaging servers. These nodes adopt a textile tinker logic. They hide lethal cyber threat capabilities, including initial access brokering, beneath harmless-looking protocol layers. The macro containment protocol requires executing simultaneous network EMPs across the entire fragmented architecture, targeting the collective infrastructure rather than individual domains. The four-part intelligence schema maps the same adaptive mechanics whether the threat is expressed through a human host or a fragmented digital network. Pulling back to a global scope, we observe thousands of pulsing nodes across biological and digital vectors. They multiply faster than they can be neutralized. The concepts of a parahuman cure or a deep web deletion remain operational fallacies. These biological powers and digital networks utilize containment attempts as a mechanism for adaptation, absorbing the force of a takedown to refine their next expansion. Each physical seizure and server takedown acts as an evolutionary filter, selecting for threat actors who are more ruthless and psychologically compromised. As the action taken to neutralize the threat provides the shard algorithms with the data required for infinite adaptive conflict. The PRT analyst operates to clinically prolong baseline human survival by identifying the specific thresholds of uncontained threats. Handlers must prioritize the host's psychological trauma. The nature of that pain dictates the tactical reality of the power. You are required to pinpoint the Manton limit, the singular operational blind spot in the shard's defensive geometry. Exploit that specific flaw without hesitation. Rigorous observation and classification are the only defense against a universe optimized for our destruction.